Single parenting isn't easy. We understand. Most parents don't plan to go it alone, but you can still make the most of this journey for your children and yourself. In fact, if you and your family are on that journey, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Single Parent Advocate community and to our podcast. And here are your hosts, single parent founder Stacy Poitras, and broadcast journalist, single dad and friend, Daryl Moody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Single Parent Advocate podcast. I am Daryl Moody, joining you from my home in Orlando, Florida. Stacy Poitras, the Single Parent Advocate. She joins us from those beautiful SPA studios there at Venture X Louisville, or is it Louisville? I'm from Florida, Louisville, the realm at Castle Hills. Stacy, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Daryl. It's Friday. It's a beautiful day, and we're very excited just to be back together with you again.
It's great, man. We're here in Orlando. We had a cold front come through overnight, so it's a beautiful 80 degrees, and we're not going to touch the 90s for at least 4 or 5 more days. So it's just perfect here for the weekend. How's Dallas?
All the alligators are happy.
Well, the alligators would be happy if we got more rain. We haven't had much rain lately. It's a little dry for the alligators. They prefer when it's real soupy and muddy and all that. But how are things in Dallas?
Good. It's like I said, it's really beautiful. We are past the rain. We had two weeks of overcast and rain, and today it just was like, oh, just beautiful. And then it's been a very busy week.
I had to anchor at WDBO this week, Wednesday morning, and we had a story about some severe weather going through Dallas, hail and pretty strong winds and that sort of thing. So it's spring, though. That's, it's that time of year, right?
Yeah. Tornado tunnel around here, Oklahoma and Texas and North Texas particularly. Sometimes we get that kind of stuff. We had some tornado watches and stuff like that, but some folks had some major hail in their vehicle windows one week. Mm-hmm. And then but hopefully we're past all of that.
And love those events.
Yeah, no, they're not fun. Like literally hail.
Sure.
Big as your eyeball and bigger. So we just hopefully we're past that.
Yeah. So let's catch the listeners and viewers up on the Mother's Day banquet from last week. How did that go for you guys?
It was so fun. Gateway Dallas Church really, really stepped up, provided a really wonderful meal. We had the Fish Sticks comedy troupe there, and they made funnies and did all kinds of improv. We had home decor and beautiful items for the moms that came. We had, just a really, really nice time where we could get together, honor our moms. And we were able to nominate a few of them who are going through some particularly pickled times to organization that may help them in addition for some duress relief, which I'm super grateful for that also. And we're moving on to planning Father's Day and back to school. And it's going to be back to school is probably one of our largest outreaches. And so getting a jump start on that right now is, front of my mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, August is coming right around the corner.
It's like right as school ends, we all start really leaning in on back to school already. And people are like, Stacy, why are you working on back to school? And I'm like, well, if I don't, then you won't be very happy with what you get.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that after toward the end of the show. But if folks want to catch up on everything that you're doing, singleparentadvocate.org, Single Parent Advocate on Facebook and Instagram. Let's talk about Mother's Day. I know your son is in Hawaii, but you got to spend some time with loved ones, I'm sure.
Well, what I did, honestly, Daryl, had a great time texting with my son, and then eventually that turned into a conversation. So I was super excited to hear his voice.
Did you get FaceTime though?
No, I didn't get FaceTime. But that's okay. He's on the Big Island, where the volcano is, and so I was lucky to get reception on Mother's Day, but we had a great talk, and we're making plans for me to come down and see him in September. And so that's all, really positive. And then I have a hobby. I dance. And so after I had a great conversation with my son, I went to the dance studio and I danced for 2 or 3 hours, and that felt great. And it was a good mom's day. Oh, and a friend of
Awesome.
mine, a really good friend of mine who's kind of like a second cousin, he took me to Mother's Day brunch after church. So I got church, I got brunch, I got to talk to my son, I got to do something I love. It was like perfect day.
So you got fed completely, fed emotionally, fed spiritually, fed physically.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff. So I had my kids last weekend, but of course it was Mother's Day, so I wanted them to spend the day with their mom. So what we did for her was we went and I let both kids pick out flowers for her and let them each pick out a card. And then I'd offered to her, because there's a diner right around the corner from where she lives. I'd offered to her we would pick up breakfast on the way, and I'd drop the kids off at breakfast since I can't give her breakfast in bed. It's as close as I could get. She said, we'll let the kids decide what they want. So we went to Krispy Kreme,
Oh.
and got her a dozen donuts. And apparently everybody and their brother in Orlando had the same idea to get mom Krispy Kreme donuts for Mother's Day. So that took a while. So I took them to their mom's house and they spent the day with her. I then went and picked up my mom, and we drove up to the Villages, which you may be familiar with. It's the world's largest retirement community. It's ridiculous. These folks have everything. So my sister lives kind of, the Villages was kind of between my house and my sister's house up in Ocala. So my mom and I met my sister and her kids for Mother's Day, and had a really nice lunch there on a golf course there in the Villages, and spent about 3+ hours in the car with my mom. So it was good to trap her for some good quality time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I had a great talk with my stepmom. We had a really, really good talk, and I called my mother-in-law, and she was doing really good. Checked in with my own moms. And I was wondering, the neat things that happened at Gateway was somebody brought their mom with them. Not only just for themselves, but to honor their mom, and it was really
Awesome.
neat. We just spoiled her too, and so it was just what I really wanted was, to honor the tradition of honoring our parents, and whether you're a mom, a grandma, a dad, whatever your role is in raising kids on your own, let's honor it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm sure there are, a lot of surrogate moms out there that should certainly get their dues on Mother's Day as well.
Yes.
You don't have to be a birthing person to celebrate Mother's Day. That's
right.
Sure. They say it's anybody can be a father, but it takes somebody special to be a dad. I think it's the same way with being a mother versus a mom.
Oh, that's right. Well, coming up for Father's Day, we're gonna have to be thinking.
And I'm excited because this year Father's Day falls on June 20th, which is also my oldest daughter's birthday. So it's our day together. So we're gonna do something special.
Double trouble.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat of today's show, the topic that we really wanted to talk about. Now, I as you know, Stacy, I do a podcast called Not in the Mood with Daryl Moody, where I cover a variety of topics, from social media to single parenting. That's how we got connected. I talk about, this week I did 2 podcasts, one on cryptocurrency and one on cybersecurity. But what I try to avoid at all costs is politics and religion. Those are 2 things that I will do just about anything to not talk about on the air, just because it's, you just bash the people over the head with your opinion.
And so you decided that this week, that's what we were going to talk about. Mm-hmm.
Well, you and I came up with this idea together, and the idea was, how do you, as far as politics is concerned, how do you navigate, one parent's politics versus the other parent's politics? But as far as religion is concerned, my kids are still little. What's a good age to introduce your faith to them? How's the best way to do that? So what do you want to do first, politics or religion?
Let's do politics. Let's get it off the table.
Politics it is. Okay. So full disclosure, I lean libertarian. I'm fairly conservative fiscally, but I believe, as long as you're not hurting anybody, people ought to be able to do whatever the heck they want. So And what's funny is the girl's mom, when we got together 10 years ago, she was fairly moderate. And it was funny, over the 10 years that we were together, I felt like she leaned more and more right every year. And she would say things that I felt were even more conservative than me. And I would, hey, yeah, you're leaning kind of right there. You might fall over there. Be careful. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of funny. But since we've separated, my kids report to me now that she is now a progressive, and it's funny, because of me being in the media and in the news business, I watch a lot of news. Therefore, by default, my kids are subjected to watching a lot of news. So it's funny, what they report back to me about mom's politics versus my politics. How do you get into politics with your son? Because I know your son's dad isn't quite as involved.
Yeah, no, he's not involved at all. But I would always say, let's be aware of what's going on. Now, I also, and I've mentioned this before, would also have neutral male role models involved in his life, where we could all talk about these types of things. And in our family, we leaned conservative for sure. And, it ended up being a talk about, like, definitely you need to vote. You need to register to vote. I'm going to go vote. You can come with me and stand, in line, wait in the car, play your video games, whatever. But, my conversation with Chris was more about, let's be good citizens. I didn't talk about, you must decide this, you must decide that, even though I do have some passion points. I was more centered about, let's be good citizens, let's be good members of the community.
Respect the process, so to speak.
Yeah, and like, you need to vote, you need to, be aware of what's going on around you. Don't just, be under a rock and let things just happen. That's not really a good plan, because, the first time I ever kind of really leaned into politics, somebody told me, you can't complain if you don't use your vote, like,
oh, one of my favorite lines.
And so that to me was more, I didn't try to push my religious or political agenda, which sometimes does get crisscrossed even though they're not supposed to. I just wanted him to be a good citizen and to be aware, to be awake, to be involved, at whatever level. Maybe you're just aware and you vote, but maybe you volunteer periodically, or maybe, you just attend something. You just don't know. But I did take him, one of the highlights of introducing Chris to politics was taking him to Washington, D.C. with some friends, was another single parent family. And we went all around all the monuments, and we looked at the Library of Congress, and made sure that we went to our representative's office, and we have pictures of us and Pete Sessions, in our stuff. And
yeah, no, we did the Washington D.C. family vacation in 2017 as well.
And then later, I took them down to the Texas Capitol, Austin. We went and toured the Capitol, and then also in Texas, I am technically considered a daughter of the Texas Republic because I had a relative die in the Alamo. His name was Benjamin Milam. Yeah,
that's pretty Texan.
I know. I'm not, and so I really wanted to take him to the Alamo and say, okay, this is where the doors are, and the doors are displayed where the sniper shot him and he fell. And so Chris, was exposed. And so maybe what I did was I brought history to life. And then as we went, we would talk about today, and things. But I never said, you need to vote this way or you need to vote that way. I believe I was transparent with him about how I felt about voting, and I shared that with him. But now I just, he's 21 and in Hawaii, and the politics there are probably very different than they are here. And it's very early in his adulting journey for me, and so I haven't really broached the topic, Daryl, to think about it, to talk about, what's his vote look like today? What's his political stance look like?
Well, because of my job, I mean, I interview members of Congress fairly regularly, and my kids have actually, I've interviewed members of Congress while, at Target or on a bike ride. You know what I mean? So my kids, and unfortunately, I'll admit I am a little bitter and jaded, and I'll be the first person to tell you they're bad people in both parties, and I think both parties are equally responsible for the current state of the country. But I'm curious to see what will rub off on each kid, and will they adopt my tendencies and leanings, or will they adopt their mother's? So I'm curious to see how it works out. But I mean, as far as, I like your neutrality, I admire that, Stacy. I don't know if I am disciplined enough to do that. And here lately, I've had a lot to be fired up about. So.
Well, here's the 30,000 foot thing that if I could spill some neutrality on you, is, things change and things shift, and the topic of the day burns hot, and then it gets cold, and then we get a new hot topic. And that's why we have to stay involved, vote our hearts, try really hard not to be deceived, but also don't sow resentment, don't sow distrust, don't sow fear, right? Because anytime we lead with those things, we're leading a divisive conversation versus saying, okay, I'm going to try to understand where you're coming from, even though it's not comfortable for me. I can see it's comfortable for you. So maybe we can try to figure out, how to still be in the same family,
Sure. Well, I mean, as you said, your son is a young adult, so you're going to see what path he takes. My kids have a ways to go. Let's transition now to religion, the other hot topic of the day. And this is why I wanted to tackle this as a subject today. I don't attend a church with my kids yet. I think they're still a little too young for that. But I grew up in a private Christian school run by a Southern Baptist church. So I have a Southern Baptist upbringing. And the cool thing about graduating from the same school that you went to kindergarten in is you acquire these lifelong friends. And thankfully for me, I'm in my 40s, and I still have a lot of these friends that are still in my life fairly regularly. One of these guys, my buddy, Greg, was over for a barbecue a few weeks ago, and he was in the living room and happened to find a book that I read to the kids every day. I would hold it up to show the viewers, but we tried that and it didn't work well with the virtual background. So the name of the book is Jesus Calling, Bible Storybook. It's basically just a collection of Bible stories written at a child's level. And it's, there's the little story, and then at the end, it quotes a scripture, a passage of scripture, and then kind of, puts that in a more relatable way. So Greg takes a look at the book and he's like, oh, okay. All right. That's good. I was just talking to my mom the other day, who I know too, and helped raise me just as much as my mom helped raise him. And he said, Karen was asking me if you take the girls to church. And I said, well, I feel like at 7 and 5, the 7-year-old could probably make it through a sermon. The 5-year-old, probably not so much. So I'm not quite comfortable taking the kids to a church and attending regularly just yet. And I know you say that they have childcare programs and they'll take the kids and keep them busy while but I'm in the news business and I don't trust anybody. So, I'm not comfortable doing that just yet. So I told Greg, I said, this is my way of sharing the gospel with them at this young age. And thankfully it's not all foreign to them, because they, in their daycare that they started off at, it was run by the Methodist Church in downtown Orlando. So they had a foundation of knowledge. And now I'm kind of filling in gaps and sharing new stories with them, but we're really enjoying it. But am I doing this right? Am I going at this the right way?
So I like the idea about how you and I kind of compare. So I'll tell you my personal journey with my faith.
Well, I told you, I'm using you as my parenting counselor. So I tell you what I do, and then did I do it right or wrong? And then I come away from every one of these episodes a little better. So teach me.
So right or wrong, so I grew up in the Methodist church when I was really, really young, and my parents put me in the the daycare, and then later, I would attend, and then we went through a phase where they were kind of agnostic, or my mom, said she was atheist for a while, and then later on we went to the Episcopal church, and I was there for a few years until I really kind of started getting my own legs, and I decided to go really a different direction when I was in college, and I went more Protestant. And I joined my college boyfriend's church. I was a member of the worship team, and just really our life was school and church, and I was very, very happy with that lifestyle. For me, I've even written poetry about my faith. My faith walk has been very, very deep. And so flash forward to, now I'm a single parent raising my son on my own. I didn't have to balance, what his father would have done. I just had to do my best. And in the Christian scriptures, the thing I hung my hat on, and this is very personal for me, I know, and it is for many single parents out there, particularly single mothers. God is a father to the fatherless, and he's a husband to the widow. And I can tell you, when Chris was very, very young, he was on my hip, and I'm leading worship, and we're in kids ministry. And then, wow. I had to do the motions to the songs, and I couldn't put him down because he didn't want to leave my hip, So it's like, okay, come on, let's do that. And he's a baby, And then later, I moved. I had to move into a smaller home. I couldn't afford the home that we had, and checked him in and had to learn to trust a new children's ministry. And it was a much bigger church, even though I lived in a much smaller house. And so I would join the choir, and I was in the choir at that church, and he was in the children's ministry. And so for me, they had a program for people that were part of the choir called worship parents. And worship parents were people that come alongside people who need to be in service and serving a lot, and they would help connect the children's ministry to that person while they were serving. So I was involved in single parent ministry there. I was involved in the choir there. And so that the church came alongside me and my son to teach us, hey, this is kind of the path, when a child is, not in first grade, if they're first grade or younger, we keep them in the children's ministry. It wasn't just childcare, it was children's ministry. And they had programs and really invested into the lives of these children. And then after first grade, the worship parents would come and sit with them while I was in the choir, and they were wonderful people, very sweet couple that were international ministers. They would go to Africa and help create relief and schools in Africa. And so they even sewed into me, things that I got stuck on, and ended up being such a wonderful, by making myself open to what the system was in my church, I was able to understand more than just, I'm going to put him in daycare in the church. I'm going to have a partner in raising my son in the way of faith. And, for us, that was all the way up until he just like you, maybe a similar experience. He was 5 when we started at that church, and we were at that church until he graduated from high school and then took his life in a different direction, which is common for young adults. But so he now has a direct relationship with this neutral male role model that was his Sunday school teacher. He sells, he's actually a Lego star on YouTube now, Big John. And, he followed me in becoming somebody who would sing and worship and be a part of the drama outreaches of the church and the student ministry. And it was completely different. Just I did what I felt was good for both of us. And to me, I don't know of anything that could have happened any better, because he's got his own relationship with God now, and he's married, and they both, I don't think they go to church in Hawaii, but I know that they have faith and a relationship with God. And if that's what I achieved, or what God achieved through me or through our church, or whatever the right way to say that is,
you know, the foundation.
Oh, and I always welcome the idea that, okay, this is our faith. This is the faith that I have, and had. But Eric, he's Catholic, and you said you're more kind of Baptist Methodist, and I've been kind of more Baptist Methodist, but let's say it's something different. The main thing is that we want to build a line of communication between our children and their higher power, which in my case is God and Jesus, but there are other people who communicate that in a different fashion, in a different way, and still feel close to God. And so who am I to say, oh, you have to stay in this lane, there's certain discussions I think that you can get into about, okay, let's say we're all believers. What lane is the right lane for you to be in? And I've got to lean in and tell you, Daryl, what I believe is whatever one makes you close to the Lord, whatever one makes your heart glow, whatever one makes you feel like you've got a line of communication.
Well, we pray every night. I pray separately with Claire, and then I pray with Elise. Whenever we hear about somebody who's got bad circumstances, Elise says we'll pray for them, that sort of thing. So I know that they get that. I mean, we talk about Jesus, we talk about salvation and what that means. This week we talked a little bit about heaven versus hell, and how to go to heaven, and how you end up in hell. So, I like I said, they're 7 and 5, so we've got a lot of time still. But, for me, I'm just trying to get them in that direction, because, their mother isn't involved in a church or that sort of thing. So they're not going to get that influence from her. So it's important to me to instill it in the kids early,
Well, I would just say, maybe that's a thing you guys can do together, a tradition that they have with you to go to church. If
that's the plan, we'll get there.
Yeah, if you'd like, if as their father, you're saying, hey, I'm not comfortable putting them in children's ministry right now. I'd rather them sit with me for a little bit until I kind of get the lay of the land. But, in children's ministry, they make friends, lifelong friends, just like you did, just like my son did. Yep. And so you don't want to keep that from them either, by being overprotective.
My hesitation, I want to get to know the church first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to go to, a half dozen services with both kids. So I'm just trying to get them to where we can do that. And then that's the plan. We'll find the right church for us.
I think you've got the right heart. I think, hey, let's go as a family first, figure out what we all like, and then maybe we go check it out. Maybe they have a kids ministry barbecue or something where, or, one of the things that just popped in my head
Roundup Sunday?
You could volunteer to be a Sunday school, if you found a place you like, what's wrong with you going and saying, I want to be a part of the kids ministry and help,
sure.
Do stuff there. And then you're part of the team.
Absolutely. And
I always
I
thought
would
that was
love for my kids to grow up around a church the way I grew up around a Christian school. My parents weren't as religious, so I wasn't necessarily, it wasn't reinforced at home. You know what I mean? So it was, and I'm grateful that I had that influence as a child and, into my teenage years, because I didn't get it at home. I say all the time, I wouldn't be the man that I am were it not for my education that I received at Ocala Christian Academy. So I am grateful for that for sure. But,
I say you find a place that's got a great kids ministry and give it a try. The only thing we can do is share our hearts with tolerance, right, and patience, and kindness, and mercy, and grace, right. And if we don't share our hearts, that's leading from fear. That's not leading from love.
Yeah.
And that's not what God would have us do, no matter what your faith walk is. Leading from fear is not usually endorsed, right? Leading from love is, which is, I want to share with you what I believe, what works for me, and I want to help you find out what works for you and make sure I help you build that pipeline to your higher power.
Well, let's look ahead to next week, Stacy. What do you guys have planned there for Single Parent Advocate? I know you talked about gearing up for back to school. Father's Day is in less than a month or so. What do you have cooking?
So it was a fun talk this last week with all of the girls that are on the steering committee here. We debated bowling for Father's Day, a fun and wacky picnic, where we did fun races and crazy races. And in Texas, it gets really hot in mid-June. It gets, where it's 104, even higher.
That.
And so, it's kind of like, okay, inside, outside, I don't know. And then there's also, like we talked about at the beginning of the program, all the rain that can kind of come, and it'll rain and then it get really, really hot. And then you feel like you're in Florida. So Nobody likes that. It messes up our Texas hairdos. We can't deal with that.
Well, actually, it would help. It would make it bigger. Yeah. No, you would. The Texan women would love our humidity.
Usually, our hair gets pretty mousy in the humidity, so it just like sticks to our heads, and we don't feel cute anymore. So, we decided we're probably going to do a bowling like indoor thing, and we're going to partner with a local group, maybe Main Event. And so, and we'll probably just bring the whole gang in. We have some single dads that are, part of our community, but not as many as a single mom. So we want it to be a bigger celebration. And so we're looking at that. And then we're working on scholarships for single parents that are in college. We like to give book scholarships to single parents in college. So anybody that's in college that needs a little help with their books, we do not pay the money directly to the individual. We pay the money to the university. But they can email me, stacy.poitras@singleparentadvocate.org, and we can get you an application. We will be giving those book scholarships out by the end of the summer so that we can help with book expenses in the fall semester.
Awesome.
And then after that, it's Katie bar at the door. It's time for everybody to start donating money to help underwrite backpacks. We give away anywhere from 300 to 400 backpacks every summer. They are filled to the brim with what kids need. And it usually costs us about $25 or $30 per backpack. We try to shop, and get all the deals here. So, it's a little bit less expensive than if a parent went shopping for themselves. So
I've covered those events, the back to school backpack with all the gear. It's tremendous. It's so important to those kids. So,
and we're going to have snow cones this year locally. We'll be back at Gateway Dallas again. And so Super, super important. Everybody hop online, sponsor 4 or 5 kids, and help us go shopping, because that's going to be how we spend our summer here with Single Parent Advocate, is shopping for school supplies and making sure everybody's got all that they need to go back to school safely. Looks like it's going to be in person, so we want to make sure everybody's got what they need.
A word of advice. If you want your back to school backpacks to be the most popular back to school backpacks in all of Dallas, you need to put poppets in the bags.
Poppets.
You know what a poppet is?
I do.
Yes. I think the kids would love that.
I'll put that on the shopping list.
And if folks want to contribute to that effort, they can do that at singleparentadvocate.org.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, Stacy, another episode in the books. Every one of these is an educational experience for me. I thank you for your insights and any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I would just leave you and everybody with the thought, topics that we don't tread with our kids just because they're difficult or complicated in the real world leaves them floundering. And if you don't have anything to offer except for your own experience, make sure that you lead your experience with a position of love and not fear and openness, and try to make sure that you're always making a place to be a good citizen of both heaven and earth.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Well, folks, thank you for joining us once again. Thank you for listening every week. If you're listening on Audible or Spotify or any of the other platforms where you listen to podcasts, I ask that you subscribe to the Single Parent Advocate podcast so you'll be the first to know when the new episodes come out. And we will talk to you again next week.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.